Okay, yesterday's assignment you did a good job with. They were all right. So that'll be your first grade as soon as I get Shauna to get the grade book and I'll get that in. Today's not going to be particularly challenging. Tomorrow to get a little bit dicier. Yeah, I want to review what you did yesterday. You're solving for X, so remember, and you already know how to do these from yesterday. Again, you make the wall on the side of the X, and that's where you're looking at, okay? You ask yourself, what is happening to the X? It has a plus 2, so I'm minus 2. And then if you still have that number line, you'd start at negative 8, and you'd go 2 to the left, you would be at negative 10, negative 9, negative 10. That's what happens when you subtract. Okay, next problem, X equals, so where's my X? Right there, so that's the wall. And what's happening on that side of the wall? You got a plus 3. So I'm minus 3. And then I'm minus 3 from 6. That's an easy one. 6 minus 3 is 3. Remember, line up your equal sign. And that's going to be 3. And then we have X all by itself. 3 equals X. X equals 3 means the same thing. Okay. Next one, we got, again, the equation. The X is on this side of the equation. So I've got a minus, what's happening over there? Minus 4, plus 4, plus 4. That's an easy one. Drop your equals. And 3 plus 4 is 7. So X equals 7. Okay, then the last one before we move on to the new thing on the next page. 10 equals X minus 2. So here's my wall. Okay, what's happening to X over there? It has a minus 2. So we want a plus 2. And then I plus 2 to my 10. So 10 plus 2 is 12 equals X. And again, you can always rethink of it. Okay, instead of X, that's a 12. 12 minus 2 is 10, which is right. Okay, now your assignment is pretty easy. I probably have way too many examples, but that's okay. Okay, a little bit different here. You got X equals. And again, make the wall the same way, okay? Now, you're going to have to ask yourself what's happening to X, but it's not plus, it's not minus. There's a 2 right in front of the X, so that means it's multiplication. Now, I would put a dot between the 2 and the X so you know for sure that that's multiplication. And then whenever I do a dot and see multiplication, I'm going to want you to circle that. So if multiplication is happening, the opposite of multiplication is division. So you're going to divide, underline both sides, and you're going to put the same number that is multiplied by X, which is 2. Okay, so having a 2 divided by a 2 with a times X, you can just cancel out the 2's, because 2 divided by 2 is 1, okay? But 1 times X would just be X itself. And then I go over here and divide by 2. And 8 divided by 2 is 4. So remember what the original equation says. It says 2 times X equals 8. Well, if I put a 4 where X is at, 2 times 4 is 8. Okay, so again, here's the wall. Get in the habit of doing that. What's happening to X, and by the way, it's not minus, okay? A lot of people think, oh, it's minus 3. No, the minus sign would be between the X and the number if it were minus. Since there's no sign at all between the X and the negative 3, it means multiplication. Okay, so you're then going to do the opposite of multiply, which is divide. You got to put the exact same number, negative 3. Don't switch it to positive 3 when you divide. It's got to be by the same number. So you can cross those out and then underline the other side and put the same number, negative 3. Okay, so you can use a calculator if you want to. 18 divided by negative 3 is negative 6. Okay, so X equals negative 6. Because negative 3 times negative 6 would be positive 18. A negative times a negative is a positive. So that's why that is. Okay, next one, solving for X. So again, what's happening to the X? It's not minus, okay? If it was a minus, it'd be between the X and the 2. So between the X and the 2 is a implied multiplication dot. And we do the opposite of multiply, which is to divide. Okay, and when you're dividing, you got to take the same exact number. Don't switch it to a positive 2. It's the exact same number. Those cross out, and then I go divide 10 by negative 2. You got to put the same number under both lines. Okay, whatever you put under the line here goes under the line on there. So line up your equals. This side we have x by itself, and then I divide 10 by negative 2, and that's negative 5. So we have our solution, negative 5. These don't take a long time to do, but it's important to move on. You got to know what you're doing here. Okay, 18 equals 6x. So here's the wall. Now, what's happening to the x? Well, it's a times 6. Okay, so again, I'm sorry I haven't been doing it, but get in the habit of circling your multiplication. Then you underline it, and you put 6 under the line. Not x. Don't put x under the line. Just the number, the 6. Then I go over here, and I got to have the same number on the bottom on this side that I have on that side. So 6. You can cross those out because you've got 6 divided by 6, which is 1, but 1 with a times x is just x. Then 18 divided by 6 is 3, so 3 is equal to x. Okay, example 5, solving for x. So again, here's where the wall's at. And over here, what's happening to x? It's multiplied by negative 4. So again, get in the habit of circling multiplication or division. I didn't do that in the other packet yesterday because I didn't have multiplying or dividing. So I underline this side and underline that side, and we need to divide by the number that's multiplied by x. Okay, negative 4. Remember, don't switch it to plus 4. And then I go on the other side and divide, put the same number on the bottom. So x equals right there, and we got x, and then taking 16 divided by negative 4 is going to be negative 4. And the equation makes sense because if I take negative 4 times negative 4, that's positive 16. Okay, next problem. 20 equals 4x. So again, here's the wall. Now what's happening to x over on the right side? It's multiplied by 4. Okay. So I do the opposite of multiplication, which is divide. So I underline because that's how I represent division when I'm solving equations. I know I have to divide, so I underline both sides because the line means division. We need to divide by the factor that's multiplied by x. On both sides, you got to have the same number on both sides. Okay, so I'd line up my equals. I have x by itself, and then 20 divided by 4 is 5. So x equals 5. Okay, example 7, x equals. So again, here's where the x is at. Now what's happening between the x and the 8? A multiplication, okay? So I circle that. And then I divide by just the 8. Don't put x under the line ever, okay? And then I go over the other side and divide by 8 too. Okay, again, I have to have the same number here that I have here. So drop the equals, and again, you can cancel the 8's out, because if you're multiplying by 8 and dividing by 8 at the same time, they cancel out. And then 16 divided by 8 is 2. So x is equal to 2. Remember to put the right number under the lines. You always put the number under the lines that's multiplying the x, 8. 16 is not multiplying the x, so we don't put 16 under the lines. Okay, here's my wall. Okay, so what's happening over there between the x and the 2 is a multiplication. Once again, it's not minus. So I underline each side, and I go over here. I'm going to put negative 2 under the lines, and then negative 2 over there. So again, having a multiplication by negative 2 and a division by negative 2 at the same time means those cancel out. So I line up my equals, and I have the x over there by itself. And then we take negative 24. Remember, the negative's right below the 3 if you need it. Divide by negative 2, and that's 12. So my answer is 12. Okay, example 9. X equals, so here's the wall. So between 20 and x is a multiplication. Okay, so I need to do the opposite of multiplication, which is to divide. So underline both sides when you divide. So we got 20 and then 20 over here. Remember, if I'm taking x times 20 and divided by 20 at the same time, that gives me just x. And then negative 40 divided by 20 is negative 2. Because 20 times negative 2 equals negative 40. Okay, example 10. Okay, what's happened to the x on the left side? Between the numbers, the number is multiplication, so I circle that. And then I underline both sides to say I'm going to divide. That tells everybody I'm going to divide. Because if I just put negative 5 without the line, I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, I might think I'm taking negative 20 minus 5. So negative 5, negative 5. So again, timesing, when you take x times the same number and divide by this number all at the same time, they just cancel, and I have x. And then negative 20 divided by negative 5 is positive 4. Okay, 3x equals, we already had this one. 3x equals 18, I'll do it again. Okay. So you're taking the multiplication problem, and to find the answer, we do the opposite of multiplying, which is to divide. Okay, by 3 and by 3. Remember again, never put x below the line, because the x stays there, so it's by itself. 18 divided by 3 is 6. Okay, and the last one, negative 6x equals negative 18. So x is multiplied by negative 6. Okay, so then I underline both sides and divide, so I got negative 6, negative 6. Then we'll go negative 18 divided by negative 6, and that gives me 3. Okay, pause the video, do the 8 problems, and then come back. Okay, this next one, you just got 4 at the end. I want to recap what you've learned so far. You're solving for x. So again, here's the wall. Now what's happening to x? Between the x and the 2, there's a plus, so I need to minus 2. So line up your equals. You got x here, and then 18 minus 2 is 16. Makes sense. 16 plus 2 is 18. Okay, next one. Wall here. Now what's happening to x? Between x and 6, there's a minus sign. Okay, so I do the opposite of minus, which is plus 6. Line up your equals. You got x here. Now if you're on that number line I gave you yesterday and you're at negative 4 and you add 6, you'd move 6 to the right, which would take you into the positives. It would take you into positive 2. So x is 2. Because 2 minus 6 is negative 4. Okay, then what I just taught you. Now what's happened to x? Well, good question. If there's no sign in between, it means multiplication. And I then divide both sides by the factor that multiply. There, circle that. And also, if you circle it, it tells you what number to put underneath there. That's another way that helps. 12 divided by 6 is 2. So line up your equals. You have x by itself, and x equals 2. Okay, now, kind of the last thing. You're solving for x. Now, here's your wall. Now, what's happening to x? It's being divided by 2. So just like when I had multiplication, I want to circle the division. Okay, trust me, that'll help later on. And if we have dividing by 2, we have to do the opposite of divide, which is to multiply. So when I multiply, I put a dot on each side, and I take the number from there. Because remember, if I'm multiplying by 2 and dividing by 2 at the same time, those cancel. So line up your equals. You have x, and 6 times 2 is 12. And that original equation makes sense because if I take 12 divided by 2, that equals 6. Okay, next problem. Here it is. What's happening to x? Again, if you have division, so you want to circle that just like you would with multiplication. But if you have division, you're going to times and times by that number there in the circle. So 2 and 2. So I line up my equals. So having a times 2 and a divided by 2 at the same time means those cancel, and now I have x by itself. Now on the other side, I take 2 times negative 18, that's negative 36. Because if x is negative 36, if I take negative 36 and divide it by 2, that's negative 18. Okay, next problem. Make your wall. Now what's happening to x? It's being divided, so you want to circle. Whenever it's being multiplied or dividing, you want to circle. So x is being divided, so I need to times by 5. Because remember, the rule is if I have a times 5 and a divide by 5 at the same time, those cancel. Then 7 times 5 is 35. Next problem. 3 equals x divided by 4. So again, here's where x is at. What's happening to it? It's being divided. Okay. So when it's being divided, we need to multiply. We multiply by the number that's x is being divided by, which is 4. So I line up my equals. Over here we have 4 times 3, which is 12. Over here, when I have a times 4 and a divide by 4, they cancel, and I just have x. And tomorrow, what I'll do is I'll give you a assignment with a video, but it'll be a bunch of operations at the same time. Negative 6 equals x divided by 2. So again, you're going to circle that. Make your wall. And when x is being divided, that means you have to multiply. And just like in division, don't switch the negative 2 to a positive 2. You need to keep it, it's got to be, you want to multiply and divide by the exact same number. Negative 2, can't fit it. So I drop my equals. Negative times a negative is a positive. 2 times 6 is 12. When you're multiplying and dividing, the number line doesn't do any good. Number line is for addition and subtraction. You get x. So x is 12. Okay, wall here. What's happening to x? Okay, it's being divided, so I circle it. I put dots on each side. You got 3 and 3. So I know that when I take x times and divide by 3, those cancel, and I have x. 3 times 18 is 54. Use a calculator if you don't know it. Okay, next one. Here's the wall. What's happening to x? It's being divided, so I circled what's the division. And then I times, and I times. That circle is going to help us out in another assignment that you're probably going to do on Thursday. Negative 5, unless you're in the musical. Okay, so if I'm timesing and dividing, we get rid of those, and I have x, and then negative 3 times negative 5 is positive 15. Okay, again, x is being divided. So if x is being divided, I'm going to have times to undo the division. So we got 5 and 5. So drop your equals. Over here, 5 times 6 is 30. And over on this, when you have a times 5 and a divide by 5, those cancel. So x equals 30. Okay, you got 4 in that one. It should be pretty cake.